I'm flipping through something. Oh, are we good? Okay, I think we're good. All right, can I take this out? No, I can't. Okay, so hi, I'm Daina Zhou. Some of you may know me. I'm a senior. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the idea of the term paper and the action project, but pretty much, as a senior, you have the liberty to choose something that really matters to you. And this is a question that you're going to kind of put in your back pocket, and it stays there for several months. And if it's something that you truly care about, then you're blessed, and you can actually, honestly, be interested in what you're studying. And for us, that meant reading a lot of books, research, going out and creating an action project that does something to change the world, whether it's large or small. Now, my inquiry question, next. Okay, my inquiry question was, what are the responsibilities of the socially privileged, and how do we define the greater good? I think this question, am I a little too close? Okay, I think this question came to me just because of the environment that we live in. We live in Tenafly, or Alpine for some of us, and it's a bubble. And I think just how I was raised, based on, the fact that we live in America and many of our parents, are immigrants. I was always interested in the idea of privilege and work and how that affects one another, the idea of cause and effect, and how do we live our lives meaningfully. Now, my action project, I had originally thought I was just going to interview a bunch of people, because that kind of thing seemed intuitive. But I feel like interviews, while they're extremely personal and because people can divulge a lot to you, that stays confidential. And of course, I had thought that I would publish them, but it didn't seem meaningful enough. So I feel like talking and sharing, the crux of what I find is more personal, more meaningful, and it will hopefully deliver a stronger message. Next. Okay, so this is a quote by an anonymous Chinese author, and he wrote, "Under the mask of fiction, you can tell the truth." So we had to read novels, and I had chosen one nonfiction after that. And so literature can teach us a lot of things, and ultimately I had learned that literature is a reflection of real life. You can draw inferences, you can understand, projected courses of action through literature because you are vicariously living through them, and it's wonderful. But I can read a book. I'm human, and as much as I don't like to admit it, I am biased, and we do actively try to correct that, but I'm going to seek answers in the way that things pop out to me. It's how I am. I can't ask a book, hey, so what is your response to this question? Because that's not how it works. But with people, it's different. With books, you have to read between the lines. Everything is there in your own interpretation. Next. Next. Okay, so in books, we're okay. So in books, I learned that the privilege, your responsibility is to personally identify your own form of privilege, whether that is love, it is support, whether it is freedom or your gender or your race or your money. You need to identify that and do something productive. And that was what I had, gotten out of it, because maybe I was reading it a particular way. You're living your life through this term paper, and I was really, really pumped about it. And that's what I had gotten. But through my interviews with my students here at my peers here at THS, I had interviewed seniors because I am a senior at THS. I had grown up with these people in this town for a very long time, and I am deeply rooted in this town. And I had asked my friends, interviews, take a certain course of action. And at first, of course, it started with social responsibility, but when you're taking a conversation somewhere, sometimes it's much more organic just to let it go, right? So we had let it go, and I had come across something that I had totally not expected to find, and I would have never, ever thought that I would sit here and tell you to be nicer people, quite frankly, because I would never consider it. But I actually thought that this was maybe a good finding, because in literature, I had learned that, maybe taking your talent and being the best at that talent, maybe you are the best smith, like in your town, and you're really gonna do that very well. And you're not gonna save the world, but you're gonna live a very fulfilling life. Maybe you're gonna just be conscientious about your decisions and taking into consideration your impact. Well, that's kind of similar, but on a more human scale, and I think that was what it was. I had learned that a lot of this starts at home, where your habits are first being built, and small changes are the ones that make larger change, because it stacks up. Small habits will turn into greater habits, and then suddenly your entire perspective will change. We live, in an environment that is enclosed, and we spend a lot of time in this high school, and I think the first thing that I've learned from these interviews is that you need to be comfortable with yourself, and you need to be okay with the change that the changes you make in yourself and in your life, and how you need to figure out that your conduct does affect you and others. And you didn't exist in this bubble, because you didn't touch anyone else. You are connected to a whole bunch of relationships. And too many of us are talking about how high school is oppressive and how you want to get out of here. And, oh my God, I can't wait until I get into the real world. Well, do you think it's going to be any different in the real world? I mean, you're going to meet people that you might think you disagree with. You're going to think that, oh, so-and-so doesn't like me. You're going to find yourself caught up in all these superficial things. But one of the most important lessons that I've learned from these seniors is that understanding people and their differences is extremely important. And the superficial and vain things that you go through will cause yourself a lot of unnecessary hardship. You're going to deal with a lot of superficial things in high school that don't really matter, and that can detract from what high school really should be about. Of course, our presenters before have mentioned that it does make you a stronger person, which I totally agree with, but some of it can be irreparable, some of it can be unnecessary. And I think that when you accept the most valuable thing to do is to take pride in your own work and to do what you think is right and steady, high school becomes much more enjoyable. And then you stop giving people so much smack about doing dumb things that don't matter anyway. So I tell you guys, from what I've learned from my interviews, actually a peer had said that when you die, the only thing that will be left behind is what you do to help people. And I can't necessarily agree that that's exactly what happens, because there are negative repercussions. But you can start small. Next. By being a conscientious person when it comes to comments. Make sure that people are comfortable where you are. Be wholeheartedly honest, not because you feel like that's right, but because you're really believing it. You're believing what you're saying. And let people in who you don't think you would want to be friends with, not because I'm telling you to, but because it does make you a better person. And it's important to grow in high school, because this is the environment that we're blessed in. We're privileged enough to be in this incubation tank, of ideas and personalities, and we can ferment and learn our different ideas and firmly understand ourselves better. And I think we should understand that all of us have different interests and ideals. But we should make our privileges here count. We should find something meaningful in the world to pursue. We should live our lives with steadiness, in your stride, and confidence that if you want to make a difference in the world, you can. And if you don't want to make a difference, at least don't be a bad one. So thank you for your time. And next, there are some questions. If you guys would do me a favor and help me out with my collective data research. It's the same website. It's tinyurl.com/THS Talks. My name is Daina Zhou. You'll find my questions. Yeah.